For the first time, it's being revealed for the public. Here we go. Welcome to 99% Geek Presents, an audiobook theater podcast. I am your host and writer behind 99geek.ca, Andrew Getzi, and this is being recorded on Sunday, April 4th, 2021. We are in April now. My goal in life has always been to write for television, but it's a goal I've had little luck so far in attaining, so instead I've resorted to self-publishing novels on Amazon, but writing the monthly chapters like episodes of TV shows that people can download at patreon.com/99geek. Every chapter is released in 4 parts, a teaser in 3 acts, and every month features a different book spanning both science fiction and fantasy and every genre in between. That's right, I wrote all the books featured on this podcast, trying to make ends meet in what feels like a poverty nightmare. I'm doing all of this alone, living off unemployment insurance. I don't have a budget, I don't have a team, no editors or producers, I have no backup, no support, I'm completely alone, pro bono with nothing but my passion for telling stories, and thus I ask you not to judge me or my work or my production values too harshly. I'm doing the best I can, trying to wear all the hats. Tonight we will be reading from Phase 3 of Season 1 of 99% Geek, a chapter of a book entitled Princess Mirande and the City of Tomorrow. Remember, you can follow along at patreon.com/99geek. Chapters are somewhat standalone, but at least make sure you start on week 1 for the recap. This is, in fact, week 1, and not just that, it's also chapter 1, so welcome to a new book. This is chapter episode number 1 of Princess Mirande and the City of Tomorrow. And so we begin with week number 1. Welcome. 99% Geek Season 1 presents a Phase 3 production. Or Phase 3 publication. Sorry, this isn't a movie. Whoa, my horses. Princess Mirande and the City of Tomorrow by Andrew Getzi. Characters, places, and events are works of fiction and not at all indicative or representative of any real-life person, places, or things, despite certain locations and characters being derived from real-world sources. Parental warning. There may be violent content. This is unlike royalty, where there is much more to that parental warning. This is not going to be royalty. This is not going to be explicitly extreme. It's going to be a little more kid-friendly. Not completely kid-friendly, but a little more kid-friendly. But anyway, reader discretion is still advised. Previously on 99% Geek at 99geek.ca. It's a weird start. Rachel Lynn Smith was just a shy teenage girl until she was turned into a vampire against her will by an evil serial-killing monster. She managed to escape from his perverted clutches, and with the help of her geeky friends, she has tried to reacclimate herself to her old, quiet suburban life. But it was no use. Try as she could to hide, it didn't matter. Trouble had a way of finding her. So she chose to fight back. Chose to train her abilities and find a confidence in herself, to stand up to the people that threaten not just herself, but also threaten the people around her, the whole city, and even the world. She has had to contend with gangs of feral child vampires, cults of magic-worshipping terrorists, and even fought a giant robot. She was captured by the cult, separated from her friends, and her enemies tried to turn her into a damsel in distress. They failed, and she destroyed their headquarters from within before reuniting with her friends. Her signature weapon is a sword, forged by a blacksmith practicing an ancient art. The sword has been imbued to draw power from love, something Rachel is in no short supply of, stuck in the middle of a romantic threesome between her best friend and the most popular girl in school. Meanwhile, on a world far, far away, in another galaxy even, Frankie was just an orphan girl who never had a last name, recruited by a guild who preyed on people like her, vulnerable children with no one to look after them. She was trained by the Thieves Guild to be amazing at what she does, and forced to commit crimes in their name. Her loyalty didn't prevent their betrayal, and she was given to the guards of her city to be locked away. She managed to escape with a new friend she made in the dungeons, a man with amnesia who is kind and respectful but strong. With his help, and that of a disgraced guard, she has been seeking to get revenge on the guild that betrayed her, going so far as to face off against the guild's leader in single combat on the roof of a tower. She was defeated and left for dead, and still hadn't yet shook off that defeat as she laid down upon her friend's couch that night and closed her eyes to sleep, perchance even to dream. Her signature weapon is her leather jacket, magically imbued to be able to produce infinite knives from her sleeves. They are from different worlds. One is a world not so different from our own. The other is a medieval fantasy world the likes of which we imagine in Dungeons and Dragons campaigns. Neither woman knows each other's world exists, but they are about to. This is Season 1, Episode 1, or Book 1, Chapter 1, The Princess, the Thief, and the Vampire, released at 99geek.ca on April 2021. So it all begins with the Earth, right? Uh-huh. And from there, the light travels past Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune. It passes through the solar divide, past the ribbon of asteroids, and gets warped by the dark matter of a primordial black hole before entering interstellar space. What follows is 100 billion-year trip past lost exoplanets and asteroids and rogue stars and black holes, past the trinary star system of Alpha Centauri and the white binary stars of Sirius. Leaving the local cluster behind, the light travels down the arm of the Milky Way galaxy, passing the red supergiant Betelgeuse. All the way down the arm, passing through nebulae and star-forming accretion disks, warping and lensing off the supermassive singularity Sagittarius A at the center. Passing through another arm of the Milky Way, the light streaks through the galactic cluster past satellite galaxies and Andromeda, the largest galaxy in the local cluster, the large Magellanic Cloud, then the Triangulum Galaxy, puttering along at just under 300 million meters a second. The light leaves the local cluster after having already been traveling for 5 million years, and passes by the Virgo cluster to exit the Virgo supercluster, and then the Laniakea supercluster. I've never heard that word out loud. Passing out from the galactic filaments that hold the galaxy clusters together, the light passes through void space for 1 billion years, entering another galactic filament into our own galactic cluster, passing pulsars and neutron stars, swirling gases and coalescing matter, passing into our own galaxy, through the galactic center, past our local cluster of stars, and directly into our instruments. Our equipment then breaks down that signal, that light signal, completely deconstructing and analyzing it, sharpening and rebuilding damaged parts of the image, and then displaying it here on our screen. Princess Miranda rolled her eyes. Yeah, I already know all this, she said with impatience. At least it was supposed to, her best friend Joanna said from behind the TV where she was on her knees fiddling with an electro spanner to tighten the temporal flux capacitor. Are you getting anything, Miri? It should be working. Joanna got up, the blue-skinned, pointy-eared Gultaxian, turning around to type away at her tablet. Well, I still only see static, Miranda complained, crossing her arms. I've refocused the diode, Joanna muttered to herself, counting out her steps with her long blue fingers, degaussed the lens, and even tightened the temporal flux capacitor. I don't know what to tell you, Joe, Miranda said, kicking her boxy TV in frustration. The holographic display rose from the vertical screen as it lit up suddenly, coming to life with a slightly 3D image. Oh, hey, she quickly told her friend. I did it. Joanna whistled with excitement, her ears straightening, and sat on the couch beside the princess. Is it the journalist again? It's the Countess Slade this time, Princess Miri told her. Joanna had missed a couple days of Dakota's life, and while Miranda could try to rewind, scrubbing up and down the light stream, she wasn't sure if that might not just mess up the whole thing and take them back to static. Basically, her ex-boyfriend is dealing in drugs that are killing people, so she has to team up with this detective to bring the love of her life back to justice. In the slightly 3D image in front of them, the dark-haired, pale woman was facing off against her ex, only it didn't look much like they were fighting. I think they're gonna get back together, the princess speculated with a sigh. What about the detective, though? Joanna insisted, grabbing a handful of sugar flakes and shoving them in her mouth. I caught a bit of this earlier, and it seemed like they had a sexual tension going on. Oh, they do, Miri assured her friend. But I promise you, they'll never act on it. Oh, come on, Joanna complained, her large eyes widening as her ears sagged. You can't know that. Miranda just smirked at her friend and leaned back to enjoy their show. You'll see, she said, throwing a single sugar flake into the air and catching it perfectly on her tongue. There was a chime, and the sound resonated through her whole apartment. With a frown, the princess muted her show. Someone was calling her. Her apartment was small, simple, and uncluttered, the floors and walls made of self-cleaning metal bicarbonate. The kitchen was just off from the living space, small, but containing its own matter materializer and food actualator. With those, she could make practically anything her heart desired, though her and Joe's favorite food was sugar flakes. They were like the Earth's popcorn, but sweeter. Oh, that's sweater. I almost changed to sweater. That's not. No, it is too easy. Anyway, Miranda popped another sugar flake in her mouth as the comms chimed again before finally answering. Reaching over to her coffee table, she tapped a flashing red button. Call in the corner. The entire table a screen when needed. The aged flesh-toned face of her lifelong teacher, Kolbrat Noku Stepan, popped up in a small square on her table. Grabbing the square with her fingers, she swiped up the picture, and the picture moved from her table to her holographic TV display. Princess Miranda, Kolbrat said, and by the strain in his voice, you could tell he was stressed about something. You're needed at the palace right away. Mary shared her apartment with Joe, the two of them choosing to move as far away from the palace as seemed reasonable. Miranda was just tired of it all the people bustling around, the constant duties and responsibilities, the constant nagging at her. She hated it. She hated being princess, and much preferred playing roommates with benefits with her best friend. Sorry, Kolbrat, Mary said, tapping on the table to bring up the call controls. Her finger hovered over the end call button threateningly. I rejected all my royal duties, remember? He frowned, but she kept going before he could speak. You caught me while I was enjoying my show. Come back tomorrow. Or better yet, find my brother. He loves to. Mary tried to search for a word that wasn't too mean. Be in charge. The princess was about to let her finger fall on the button when she noticed a tree behind her old advisor. Wait, Miranda said, her ears drooping as her large eyes narrowed to slits. Are you outside my place right now? I'm afraid the matter is rather pressing, Kolbrat pleaded the princess, and time-sensitive. It's okay, baby, Joe said, sliding her scantily clad body against Miri's on the couch and kissing her neck. Maybe we should just go and see what this is all about. Well, Kolbrat muttered, stuttering and stammering. You see, what I mean is, it's hard to... I mean, obviously I would have her come, but I'm afraid the matter is only for family. As soon as he had said it, he knew he had chosen the wrong words. She is family, Miranda insisted, baring her sharp teeth at him. She then slapped at the button to make him go away. The screen turned off, and with another button, the lights dimmed. Leaning back on the couch, Princess Miranda crossed her arms and slouched in a huff. You think you might be too harsh on him, Mary? Joanna asked, pulling one of her arms free and intertwining their fingers together. No, Miranda blurted, still in a huff. Blurted out, still in a huff. She looked down at her fingers entangled with Joe's. She liked the way her neon pink skin mixed with Joe's baby blue. When they held each other, she was convinced they looked like a work of art. You know, Joe muttered, if it really bothered you, you could have always just married me. The doorbell chimed. They both ignored it. Hey, Mary insisted, letting Joe lean back against her. You're not my wife, or my concubine, or whatever the hell other labels they want to put on you. You're my best friend. Anything else we are to each other is none of their business. Joe frowned. I think you put too much weight on labels, she said with a flighty sigh. If labels don't weigh so much, Princess Miranda argued, then why is everyone always trying to burden us with them? The doorbell chimed again. I don't think he's gonna leave, Joe muttered with a half grin, placing her forehead against Mary's. Then he's going to be waiting a very long time. The princess kissed Joe, the two of them sucking face as the doorbell chimed for a third time. As the door chimed a fourth time, Joe pulled herself away forcefully, getting up from the couch and making a face that said, I'm sorry, before hitting the panel by the door to open it. Sorry we're both in our PJs, Colbrot. Joe apologized as he stepped inside, though her PJs were far more risque than Mary's. Joe was wearing silk panties and a loose silky top that barely covered her chest. Miranda, on the other hand, had on long-sleeved fuzzy pajama bottoms and top. A far more conservative look. Anyone who didn't know them would never have guessed that Joanna was the nerdier of the two. I'm not changing, Princess Mary insisted over the back of her couch. Do whatever you want, Colbrot insisted, spreading his arms wide. It's no longer my job to advise you. Simply make sure that you're at the palace before it's too late. In whatever state. Carry you if I have to. That I'd like to see, Joanna said with a smile from the kitchen where she was making coffee. She leaned against the counter and put the mug to her lips as Princess Miranda got up. That won't be necessary, Colbrot, Princess Mary told her old advisor. I'll come peacefully. I most appreciate it, Colbrot muttered, leading her from her apartment. We can watch some Dakota Slade when you come back, Joe called after her as they stepped into the hall. Maybe even check in on Rachel Lynn Smith. Oh, she's my favorite, Miranda said, about to head to the elevators when Colbrot yanked on her sleeve. This is us here. He pointed to the transboard parked at the window. A transboard was like an Earth surfboard crossed with a scooter, but larger, and it flew, sometimes very, very fast. It kept people from falling off by using artificial gravity. I'll never understand your obsession with Earth, he added under his breath. I'm not obsessed, the princess argued, rolling her large eyes. Just the other day, we were watching a totally different world with this scary demonatrix lady. It was admittedly a little much for me. Colbrot stepped onto the transboard, and the princess followed on behind him. Though it was bobbing with the wind, as soon as she was on it, she felt perfectly balanced and safe. Oh, she added, and before that, we were watching a dying world in a nebula where these people were trying to build this massive colony ship to a new world. At least they think it's massive. They haven't seen all of this. She gestured out at the cityscape beside them. New Goltex, 23,724. That was the city she had chosen to situate herself, and the miles and miles of skyscrapers stretched out as far as they could see. Above them in the sky, another city, New Goltex 23725, was built on the roof of the megastructure that contained their entire solar system. Or maybe they were the ones built on the roof, in space with variable relative gravity. And variable relative gravity. It was so hard to tell. And didn't really matter anyway. From where they were, the lights of the other city above just looked like stars to them. So, what's this all about anyway? The princess asked as Colbrot shoved them off from the skyscraper. Did my brother start another war with one of our allies? Actually, it's your father, Colbrot said, reorienting their board towards the center of the megastructure. He started another war with one of our allies? Mirande asked, though she was pretty sure that wasn't what he meant. The father she knew was too spineless to ever be the aggressor in anything. No, Colbrot responded with what sounded like deep sadness in his voice. He's dying. Mirande couldn't speak for a moment, turning back to her apartment just a few feet away. I should go change, she muttered, realizing she was inappropriately dressed. There's no more time, Colbrot muttered, and he punched it, their craft soaring at blistering speeds through the skyscrapers of the city and out into the gravity lanes of the megastructure. The princess reached behind them at where her apartment had just been a moment before, and whimpered to herself, her anxiety now rising off the charts. How could her father be dying? How could he be dying when they were supposed to live forever? And that is the end of week 1. If you enjoyed that and wish to learn more about Mirande and her father and why he's dying and what's going on in this amazing new world that we've discovered, you will have to tune in next week. In the meantime, my name is Andrew Getzi, and my brand is 99% Geek, found at 99geek.ca. I'm a writer, writing monthly chapters of novels like episodes of TV shows, releasing them in 4 weekly segments, a teaser in 3 acts on Sundays on my Patreon page. Every month it's a different book, over a range of genres, and they sometimes even cross over and connect. At the end of the month, the finished chapter is added to the PDFs attached at the bottom of every post. Finally, the finished books are self-published on Amazon. And speaking of books crossing over and connecting, Exhibit A, you have just heard it. It's going to continue to cross over and connect in fun and interesting ways, and pull from characters all throughout my pantheon of stories. There's a dark fantasy story about a post-apocalyptic world where powerful royals rule and enslave the remaining people struggling to survive on the last remaining landmass. There's also a sci-fi story about a people on a dying world who have built a ship to a new one, but their project is almost brought down by a terrorist organization within their own ranks. Finally, there's a crossover... Reading is hard. Finally, there's a crossover story where characters from my other books are brought into the distant future where the princess of a far advanced civilization, one that lives in a solar system-sized megastructure around a Dyson sphere, needs help defeating her twisted, power-hungry brother. And all these stories will be outside the paywall for all to enjoy as new episodes release weekly, and you'll learn more about her twisted, power-hungry brother next week. As I said, all these stories will be outside the paywall for all to enjoy as new episodes release weekly, and the finished chapters will be attached to the bottom of every post on the site in convenient PDF format readable on computers, tablets, ebook readers, and phones at the end of the month. But that's not all my stories. There's also urban fantasy tales about a teenage girl turned into a vampire against her will, or a scorned lover investigating paranormal phenomena, or a journalist covering news and politics in the Middle East. There's a fantasy story about a fallen angel trying to stop the end of the world. And all these stories are published and available on Amazon, and are also safe and sound behind the paywall in PDF format attached to an archive at the top of my Patreon page, only viewable by subscribers My entire library of work, thousands of pages worth, is easily accessible to every subscriber at any level. There's even a Geekly Weekly blog which covers all the news you may have missed over the week, as well as ranks the week's worth of television, and makes predictions on what new pop culture things might be in the public consciousness for the next week. Finally, I do video game streams, both multiplayer matchmaking as well as single-player campaign playthroughs. You can see me play games like Final Fantasy, Call of Duty, Hitman, and more. And you can see it all in one place. So stay tuned and maybe subscribe. It's only $1, and the support you show will go a very long way, I promise. There are also higher tiers. Give $5 1 month, and you can name a character or location, or suggest a thing you might want to see. Basically, you get to give a noun, and then I promise to incorporate that noun into one of my stories somehow. Maybe not the same month you give the suggestion, but within 3 months guaranteed. No matter how crazy, you can't sabotage me. I promise. Think of it like a fun improv game, and you can keep giving nouns for every month you pay at the $5 tier. Or if you give $10, you don't get 2 nouns, but you can give a description to go with your noun. Describe the personality of your character, or the look of your location, or the importance of your item. For $10, you get a noun and a description. You can also give $1 towards supporting my efforts at video game streaming or my weekly blog if that's more where your interests lie. I'm as poor as it gets, living paycheck to paycheck and sometimes starving, so I understand if you are too. I don't want to take food out of your mouths. Your attention is enough. Say something, comment here, or at the very least follow me on Twitter at AndrewGetsy or Instagram at WingCommander4. Live long and prosper. May the force be with you. Long live Marceline the Vampire Queen. We are the 99% Geek. I should add something to that. Like, go God Kong bows to no one. We are the 99% Geek. I'll work on that. Peace.